Welcome to the very first episode of Practice Room Breaks with IMSLP. I'm your host, Natalie. Once a month, I will be sitting in practice rooms with some of your favorite artists during their breaks, and we'll be diving into their work and having fun conversations about music along the way. Today, we have a wonderful pianist, Rieko Tsuchida, joining us. Hope you enjoy! So before I interrupt her practicing with a little tea and conversation, let me tell you a little bit about Rieko. She's an absolutely stunning pianist, as I'm sure you can already tell, and she's also a very dear friend. We went to Juilliard together. She was born in Japan and is currently based here in Manhattan. Rieko has split her time between France, the US, and Japan, and you'll hear more about that from her soon. She is a truly multifaceted artist, not only collaborating with composers and even fashion designers, but also founding and leading music organizations. She's the co-founder of Ensemble Imago, a chamber music collective in Paris, and she's the co-artistic director of Classical Music Collection Japan, which you will also hear more about from her shortly. Rieko has performed everywhere, from Carnegie Hall to the Eiffel Tower itself. So enough from me, let's hear from her. You founded an organization that celebrates Japanese culture. Can you tell me about that?
Yes, so I'm the co-artistic director of a project called Classical Music Collection Japan. And this project's birthplace was actually in Paris, where I lived for 3 years from 2020. And I connected with the Japanese community there, and I was surprised at how many Japanese people were there, and especially those working in jobs related to culture and the government and business, and so many creative people. And I connected to someone who runs this company, and they have been working with the Tokyo City government for the past several years to promote tourism to Japan. And we thought it would be really innovative and unique to try to promote Japan in a new way through culture, and specifically classical music, because classical music is a Western art form, as we all know, but it didn't come to Japan until the end of the 19th century. Yet it's a huge part of Japan's culture and Asia in general now. We kicked off this project with a concert in the Eiffel Tower, which was epic, to celebrate the 40th year anniversary of friendship between Tokyo and Paris. And that was hugely successful and everyone loved it. So last year we launched our first real season in Japan. With my co-artistic director Ryutaro Suzuki, we went to Tokyo and Kyoto and Kamakura, and we have many concerts lined up for this coming season as well. I think I'll be in Japan 3 times this season.
Wow, so you're an international woman. I would be really interested to hear you talk about your growth as a musician in the US versus Japan versus France. Where did you feel, most creative? Was it dependent on your age or the era of life that you were in?
So my background is that I was born in Japan, and then when I was 2 years old, I moved to the US. And then until I was about 9 years old or 10 years old, I was living back and forth between Japan and the States. And then as an adult, I lived in France, in Paris, for 3 years between 2020 until last summer. I think my relationship with Japan is particularly interesting, or it's evolved a lot, because even though I've spent so many of my formative years, all of my teen and adult years living away from Japan, I've actually found myself now as an adult becoming closer to Japan, and it's this love to connect to my roots that really sparked the desire to start this project that I have in Japan now. And I do think that definitely the era, as you call it, of my life plays a big part in my relationship with each place. Paris was an interesting time because I moved there in June 2020, so in the midst of COVID, and I moved there for personal reasons, and I was only meant to stay for a few months, and it turned into this 3-year love affair, and I felt this instant connection with Paris. And I would say that artistically and creatively, Paris is where I felt the most myself. Just walking around through the streets or along the Seine, I felt constantly inspired to feel the history and to talk to the French people who have art and music like truly embedded into their culture. Whereas in New York City, although it's an incredibly diverse and creative place, I would say it's a more corporate and money and business minded environment. And it's a big city with a lot of things going on. Everyone is constantly on the go, and there's not that ease of life that I had in Paris. That's been something that I'm very grateful for. Sips tea.
So now that you're in this era of your life, what does your perfect recital look like? Where is it? What are you playing?
Ooh, I love this question. I think that as a performer, I'm really inspired by the setting in which I'm performing in. So I would love to perform a concert in the nature, outdoors. I would imagine in a beautiful garden, because I love flowers. I grew up studying ikebana, which is the Japanese flower arrangement. And so many composers have also been greatly inspired by nature. Many of my favorite French composers, such as Ravel and Debussy. At the moment, the program I'm thinking of would revolve around nature in a beautiful setting. And I think a recital should really be a full experience, not just about the music being performed, but about how we all can connect to each other, the performer with the audience and the audience with each other. I would want everyone to have a great glass of wine in their hands as they're listening, and I would want to follow it with an epic dinner party.
I'm also a big fan of how involved you are in fashion, and I'm honestly jealous when I see your performance outfits. I'm curious, how are they connected to the pieces that you play, if at all?
Okay, yes, I love fashion, and it's something I'm really passionate about, and I've been fortunate to befriend some incredible fashion designers. I have 2 outfits that come to mind. One is for my concert in the Eiffel Tower, I wore these special corsets that were actually designed out of kimono obis, which are the band that you wrap around your waist when you wear a kimono. And the story behind that is an Italian designer in London fell in love with Japan and the beauty and history of these kimono obis, and she redesigned them somehow. She cut them up and formed them into this Western style, the French corsets, and they're just so beautiful, and I really feel like I'm honoring my culture when I wear them, but in a unique way. And another is my dear friend Eddie Corpse, who is based in Paris, custom made a dress for me for my concert in Paris to celebrate the launch of my project, Classical Music Collection Japan. And that was so much fun because I would go over to his apartment, he would sketch stuff out for me on his iPad, and we would say, oh, maybe we want to adjust the silhouette this way, maybe use this type of fabrics. He would show me the different kinds of lace he was thinking of, and we would do the fittings, and it was incredible to see how he worked and to bring this vision to life together, and I felt really special wearing his dress.
So we're both on social media, and we share our music frequently on social media. What do you think is one aspect of a classical musician's lifestyle that just can never be portrayed on social media?
Juicy. Honestly, many parts. I think one part that classical musicians often don't show is just the mundaneness of what we do, and routine is a really necessary part of building these skills and these technical aspects. It's a lot of the work we do is physical, like working out, and there's a lot of repetition involved, and it's not pretty. Like, I think it's funny when non-musicians will say, oh, you're a pianist, I would love to, sit there and listen to you practice all day. I'm like, no, you don't.
No, you won't.
Yeah, that's one part, but another part is just how we live our lives. I think where musicians are very free-spirited. I'm generalizing, by the way, there are all kinds of musicians out there, but I don't like to showcase a lot of what's going on in my personal and private life, and I just prefer to keep it that way. But even though we don't show it, it inevitably comes out in the way we express our music, because we're expressing all these emotions and experiences we've had throughout our life.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Oh shit. Me? We wake up, we practice 4 hours, and it's usually not pretty. We're repeating things over and over and over again, and it's difficult to romanticize that on social media because as we know about social media, it's a highlight reel. So you see classical musicians' lives, you see anyone's life, and you see just the tip of the iceberg, and you don't see what happens underneath. And even when people curate it so that they show, the practice session, I've done this, I've been on TikTok and I'm like, watch me practice, but then I would stop the camera and actually practice.
Yeah.
Because there's something so important about feeling isolated when you practice.
Completely agree.
Yes. Feeling like you are alone with your thoughts and with your mind. And even if you practice in front of a camera, it's like the camera is another person there watching you. And so you're subconsciously aware of that. So I think that you can never honestly portray practicing on social media.
Yeah, that's a really good answer.
Yeah, this is really fun. Cheers.
And I love these mugs that Natalie brought.
Well, mine says much more than Bok Bok, but you don't have to hear that right now. So before we go, I have to ask, what is one piece that you just can't wait to enter the public domain so you can download it off of IMSLP?
So I would say the Prokofiev sonatas, the later ones, because in my head, it's so funny. It seems like it was ages ago that this music was written, but then when you realize that it's still not in the public domain, you realize that actually Prokofiev's music is pretty recent.
I know, yeah.
How about you?
I love dark music. I would say Shasti 13. That symphony has a very special place in my heart.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here.
That was fun. As always, we want to hear from you. Who do you want to see next? What kind of questions do you want me to ask them? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching.
Till next time.